It's good to be with you again, ladies and gentlemen. In the last session, that was session 2, we had a look at the buy schemes, which were important component of the defense acquisition procedures. Now we will progress on to development schemes in session 3, which has found an impetus in the past, as well as it has been given greater amount of push in the present draft DAP 2026.
Just a brief recap on the capital acquisition scheme. We already been through it. I won't go through it completely, but this is the complete outline. What we are doing today is the capability development, as we call it, which are the development schemes. And in that, we have the make and innovation, as well as the design and development D&D by DRDO, PSU, and Central Research Organization. The make and innovation is divided into innovation as part of iDEX, by startups and MSMEs, internal organization, technological development front of the DRDO to sponsor projects, as well as the make procedures, make 1, make 2, and make 3. Now let's have a look at the development schemes. First of all, the make procedure. Now it's on paper a very simple procedure. However, it has these problems in its implementation. It is basically that you select a development agency. The development agency makes the prototype through design and development. A lot of hand holding is carried out during the making of a prototype. He's successful, and thereafter he's given the contract to establish the production line. This is the criteria for the Make 1 as well as for the Make 2 projects. Now, these projects are given because all key technologies are available, and the Indian industry has and can establish the requisite capability to design, develop it, manufacture, test, and integrate. So everything is in-house available, or it can established, or it is designed and developed using technology available to the Indian industry. What is important? It could be indigenous, or it could be through foreign sources also. However, if it is through foreign sources, that is the technology coming in and things like that, the access to the technology and all production related dependency will be under the control of the Indian entity. That means complete IPR rights. It is not transfer of technology, it is going of complete control of the Indian entities. Obviously, certain critical components will continue coming from abroad. Now, that is the indigenous content that is there, which is laid down in the procedure. Now, coming to Make 1, additional criteria for Make 1 is firstly, it is a critical requirement. Secondly, the development involves a risk for the Indian industry. It may be in terms of the quantity not being sufficient to justify the R&D that is put in, or the cost factor being so low that the R&D that is being put in is less. So therefore, the Indian industry is not willing to undertake it itself, and it wants certain amount of financing for itself. The projects involving design, development, and manufacture of equipment, systems, platforms, and what has been added in the draft DAP 2026 is upgrades also. And remember, it is by an Indian vendor. Now, the funding, the MOD is funds up to 70% of prototype development. However, there is a caveat, up to a maximum of 400 crores per development agency. In DAP 2020, it used to be 250 crores. Now, in this, there is a term of reference to 400 crore. It's the lowest prototype costs. Whichever DA gives prospective DA gives the lowest prototype costs. The other DAs which have been selected will get a maximum variation of 15% for that. For example, the lowest DA gave a cost of 300 crore. So while the DA quoting the maximum had it at 400 crore, he will not get 400 crore. He'll get 300 crore plus 15% for us, that's the 345 crores only. However, Based on AON approval, except on necessity approval of the AON authority, the funding may be higher, as also what has been now been encapsulated in the draft DAP 2026. The acquisition wing will issue a list where projects or where funding is 100% across the board. Big projects like the FMBT, which FRCV, which has got major strategic advantages. Their funding may be much more than 400 crore and may go up to 100 crores, go up to the complete development cost of the prototype. Now, that list has yet to be promulgated. Obviously, will be done after this approval in DAP 2026. iDEX and Technological Development Fund projects, which have got the potential for next level development, can be graduated to Make One procedure and given funding. Now, this is an important issue because high technologically inputs having potential by MSME startups and small players can be given funding against this thing that has been introduced by the draft DAP 2026. Now, whichever is the successful DA, and that's SDAs, are issued an RFP for commercial offer for the prototype development and thereafter for the procurement phase based on successful prototype development. This Make One can only be given for Indian vendors. He has to meet the indigenous development model as well as the indigenous content, the indigenous design as well as the indigenous content requirement as stipulated. The funding is released in a phased manner based on the progress of the case. Now, an advance of 20% of the share of the prototype cost is paid in advance, 20%, against the bank guarantee. The balance are on a phased manner as on milestones. There would be a list promulgated by the MOD for the projects of emerging and critical technologies, which has been introduced as a clause in the make procedure. And the technological readiness level has been put at a very low rudimentary level, that is level 1 to 5. Level 1 being still at the design stage, and 5 being where it is entering into sort of a prototype development stage. So the thing has been kept low so that the development can take place as per the requirement of the SHQ. We get on to Make 2. What is Make 2? It includes the design, development, and manufacture by an Indian vendor. And the stipulation has to be there that it has to meet the indigenous design as well as the indigenous content requirement. Importantly, for the Make 2, no government funding is there vis-a-vis as compared to the Make 1. The opportunity that comes in, which is extremely important as introduced in DAP 2026 draft fashion, is the solution which are offered by a single vendor or they are offered suo motu. They would progress as a resultant single vendor. Now, what do I mean with it? Now, the GFR says that if it is a single vendor right at the inception stage, you have to justify as to why a single vendor has to be there and be permitted only if there is a very important reason to go ahead with a single vendor. Otherwise, you go in for a multiple vendor. A resultant single vendor is in the course of the complete procurement. Like, for example, trials, you end up with only one vendor whose equipment qualifies for trials. So that's a resultant single vendor. In this case, in Make 2, even if the proposal has been given by a single vendor or it is a suo motu case, it would progress and will not be stopped and no justification will be required. However, an attempt would be made for multiple vendors. What is the eligibility in this? And this is very interesting because wherever the procurement phase is less than 100 crores per year on delivery schedule, no commercial/financial criteria is required. So small players, MSMEs, etc., we do not have the experience, do not have the financial outlay, do not have the commercial outlay, can go in for these kind of a project of where than 100 crores per year on delivery schedule. If you take your eyes right at the bottom, where the AON value of up to 100 crore, the case is reserved for MSMEs, provided they are two or more. Now, there's an ambiguity that is creeping into the draft DAP 2026, because here it talks about, the chapter talks about the AUN value up to 100 crores. In the annexure, it says on delivery per year. I think a correction is required in the DAP 2026, because at 100 crore, less than 100 crores per year is based on delivery schedule and not the AUN cost. For wherever the costing is 100 crores per year, greater than 100 crores per year, the average turnover of the company in the last 3 financial years should not be less than 5% of the net cost of the project. And obviously, the net worth has to be positive. Coming on to Make 3, it's very simple. It is import substitution. We used to take equipment from abroad, parts from abroad, accessories, assemblies, etc., from abroad. And now, is there a company in India which can manufacture in India? May well be taking technology from abroad. Import substitution. We were when you're importing a particular project, you're subjected to a number of issues like upgrades, cost factor coming up, non-availability at time of crisis, etc. So to encourage companies to produce equipment which is previously being imported in erstwhile orders in India, even in collaboration with the foreign country, of equipment held in the inventory of services and not new equipment. So all key technologies, criteria, all key technologies are available to Indian industry, or it can absorb the technology from the foreign OEM and create a production, testing, integration facility and be poised for upgradation whenever required. Indian industries may establish, manufacture this either itself or in collaboration or in TOT from foreign vendors, and it is allowed to form joint vendors. However, it must meet the indigenous content requirement. Obviously, there is no indigenous design requirement in this, because if he gets into collaboration, there is not, it is the foreign country's design. So may not be indigenously design developed. So indigenous design has to be mandatorily met by Make 1 and Make 2 and not by Make 3. Successful development under all development scheme would result in acquisition from the successful DA through the category of Buy Indian IDDM with the indigenous design development and a minimum of 60% IC. Now, there ambiguity is crept in, because in portions in the draft DAP 2026, it talks about all three development schemes being under this category. But by Indian IDDM, the Make 3 cannot come under by Indian IDDM. You do not have indigenous development in India. It's a foreign product. So in the erstwhile DAP, the Make 3 was under the category of Buy Indian, Manufacture in India. I think a correction will come up when the DAP 2026 comes out. That is, Make 1 and Make 2 are under the Buy Indian IDDM category, and the Make 3 is under the Buy Indian, Manufacture in India category. We come to the innovations. Innovation for defense excellence. Now, this is finding an impetus. It was finding an impetus previously also, and doing very well. And in draft DAP 2026 has been given a great amount of push to make it more successful and more implementable. It started off as an experiment and now is going into a major issue where it will lead to encouraging of innovation in the industry, which is already taken off. Now, important considerations are the projects which involve design, development, manufacture. Importantly, from startups and MSMEs with low capital investments and high innovation. Now, this is extremely important that it has the low capital investment and high innovations, and from startup and MSMEs. Now, the various bodies which provide the projects and the grants, which is the DISC, the Spark, the IDITI, all are available in a separate website of iDEX. So that can be consulted. and they are grants given by these bodies based on the kind of projects that are there. Now, importantly, the innovators oblique startups industry can forward suo motu proposals to this, which are considered. We already gone through the issue of suo motu proposal that this is permissible, and this is an important consideration that has come in. The procurement under the will be under the Buy Indian IDDM category. That means the indigenous content is stipulated at the minimum of 60%. Now, for this, a project facilitation team will be formulated, and this will be formed. And this project facilitation team, the PFT, will be the body which will carrying out the complete hand holding through the development, the design, as well as the development of the prototype. What has been introduced in the draft DAP 2026 is a minimum pilot order quantity. Now, if the trials is successful, and the trials are going to be single stage composite trial, I'll come to it later on, and not multiple stage. If it is successful, it is mandatory to purchase the minimum pilot order quantity. However, it is subjected to meeting the commercial criteria, obviously. And since it is a minimum pilot order quantity, there is no quantity vetting and scaling is dispensed with. And this minimum pilot quantity MPQ is put into the AON as well as the RFP. The minimum pilot order quantity is set as the minimum of 10 times the initial grant amount. So it's not a minuscule time, 10 times the initial grant amount. The single stage composite trial will be conducted on functional parameters, essential and mission oriented quality assurance parameters only. Importantly, all this shall be recommended by the project facilitation team. So there is no kind of leeway for anyone to interfere in it. It is the team that is formed, which has been through the development of the complete project, which shall qualify this as to how the single stage composite trials will be pitched and conducted. On the failure of the first chance, the vendor will not be wiped out. Two more chances will be given to the vendor to succeed in the prototype trials. Also, if the prototype does not meet 100% of the QR that were put down, but is acceptable, I mean, you have reached a level which can be put into the service, can be bought into the service, and later on, the further production can be upgraded in terms of its performance, and so it is acceptable. Reduced procurement can be carried out of the first lot. That means the first tranche share procurement may be reduced than the total amount. However, a CFA approval will be required, and thereafter, for each tranche of production, stage performance can be further examined for the procurement to be carried out. That means you reach greater stages of the PSQR and the QRs that are laid down. Now, most importantly over here is that the next 5 years from the date of contract, the procurement will be done by the contracted iDEX winner. For the next 5 years, you got a guaranteed pipeline of finances available to you once you are the iDEX winner for 5 years. However, the caveat is it is subject to a total cost not more than 10 times the value of the initial purchase. Where the MPQ was not identified, not defined in the earlier cases, there it is subjected to a total of 500 crores. In the innovation category, the DRDO sponsored projects have a technological development fund with which they can finance companies which are taking on their projects. So this is basically for development and of technology and prototypes as required by DRDO by the Indian vendor. And primarily, the priority is given to MSME startups, though other companies can also come into it. There are big companies that have come into the TDF development of the project. Uh, Once the prototype is developed, The procurement is done again under the Buy Indian IDDM category, that is 60% indigenous content. Importantly here, you have a project monitoring and mentoring group. It is mentoring also as compared to the project facilitation team. Here, a large volume of hand holding comes in under the DRDO with a SHQ representative. So the project is guided through it because the DRDO stipulations are also there in the project in terms of what kind of a project, what kind of a development they want. And this project monitoring and mentoring group carries out the complete readiness review of the prototype before offering it to the SHQ for the single stage composite trial, not multi-stage again. Now, even in the TDF projects, you have the minimum pilot order quantity as in the previous thing that we saw in the iDEX. Also, single stage composite trials are designed. Again, there are stage procurement provisions that are being provided. That means it does not meet 100% of the QR that is there, but is acceptable to the SHQ. You can take it at a lower scaled version of a reduced quantity, scale up the previous thing in terms of its development, and look at it as to further whether procurement can be carried out. Similar to the IDES project, or the criteria applies here also. There are a large volume of internal organizations such as the base workshop, the dockyards, naval dockyards, base repair depots, uh, indigenous research organization, indigenization organizations, design agencies, etc., which are also carrying out innovations. So this category basically relates to them, in which they would carry out the prototype development of these projects, and these are processed internal to the services. Now, once the product is developed by these agencies concerned, the procurement will be done under the Buy Indian IDDM category, that is, with 60% indigenous content. Please keep in mind that some of these agencies may be in collaboration with the private industry and developing this project, and that is allowed in this. However, this being totally internal to the services concerned, the total cost of procurement is within the delegated financial powers of the vice chief equivalent. That is up to 300 crores presently as per the financial powers given to the vice chief. In this, the provision is there that you have accepted the trial, you have accepted the equipment, and you can carry out user trials without taking the AON oblique the RFP. That is, after carrying out the user trials, you go to the AON authority, you say that this is a good product, it has cleared our requirement, therefore the acceptance of necessity may be given, and thereafter the RFP is issued out. Trials before issue of RFP. The procurement will be taking place through indents, not contracts, through the various organization controls of ABW, NDs, BRDs, etc. And they can carry out production and manufacture of them by upscaling their capabilities itself. However, if it is found that it will be difficult for them to carry out the production internally, the TOT may be extended to the private industry through bidding rights, the bidding process, and they would be given the transfer of technology and the production will be carried out with them. This is allowed within this category, development internal and production outside. However, the developing personals oblique organization will hold the patent rights to this product. They will have control over the product. Design and development and manufacture, like I brought out in compositive, may be done with or may be done without the participation of the private industry. We talked about a reduced procurement in the first phase. Should the prototype not reach the level of the QR that is required, that is partial compliance only, and thereafter subsequent development and subsequent procurement. However, there is a caveat in this on the quantity that you will procure. Now, should it be a unavailable critical technology that is under prototype development? So therefore, if the compliance with the PSQR ab initio is up to 70%, then you can go in the first procurement for 20% of the minimum pilot order quantity. And this is for the purposes of field exploitation in the first phase. Should it not be a critical technology, then the equipment has to reach 70 to 90% of the compliance with the PSQR for a 20% minimum pilot quantity to be procured for the purposes of field exploitation. And of course, if it has reached the 100% of the compliance, it would be fit for complete MPQ procurement. Now, design and development is also carried out by the DRDO, the DPSUs, as well as by central government research organizations. In DAP 2020, you had the OFB there also, but after remodeling of the complete OFB, it's turned more competitive. No longer it's given firm orders without being competitive, and therefore out of the issue of design and development. Now, the complete this procedure involves the development of the system from right from its inceptions, conceptualization inceptions, till induction by the services, and also the life cycle support is included into the complete process. It remains the responsibility of the SHQ to identify the equipment and the platform that it wants. So it is not the freedom of the DPSUs or the DRDO to decide on the equipment of the platform. However, the design and development will be taken by the internal process of the DRDO, obviously with the SHQ as a party to the complete design and development and the subsequent induction. What is important is for the purposes of the development as well as the production, partners would be chosen by DRDO. So it is no longer an issue which used to always create a problem that the lab has developed it. Now the lab, now after developing a particular project, is now outsourcing the product for the purposes of production to a production partner. Now, what used to happen there is the absorption of technology used to take place by the production partner, and there was many a gap between what was designed by the lab and what was being produced. It is not easy absorbing the technology. It's just not manual being absorbed. It is the training to be carried out, the production line to be done, a numerous amount of things to be done. Therefore, a development where the production agency is part of the development product and thereafter goes into becoming the production agency is the best way to go through a design and development by DRDO model. In case of the DAPSUs, they have the production agencies, houses like the Bell, the HAL, they're well capable. So the design and the development completely may be undertaken in-house by these agencies by themselves. The position of a production agency to be nominated remains there, though it is not the best thing to happen. So there is a latitude to be given to the DRDO and the DPSUs, which may nominate a production agency from the Indian industry after the prototype has been developed. Like I brought out, it leads to problems at the later stage. The first two issue of the development come production agency or a production partners are far better method to do so. Now, a spiral development model is there, which looks as multi-tranches development of the equipment. No longer it is that you reach this level, you give it to me, or we won't take it. You reach level 1, which is acceptable to me, and therefore it shall be procured. A limited production shall be carried out of it. And thereafter, you aspire to achieve a higher level of SQR, and the second phase of production comes into being. An excellent thing of a spiral development model and a spiral production model also along with it in terms of procurement. Now, the development trials has to be based on the PSQR. The PSQR is divided into essential parameters. You can't have a product which is not meeting the fundamental, the basic aspirations of the SHQ coming in. So essential QRs and the desirable parameters are introduced which you aspire to meet. Now, these complete things could well devolve into what is in tranche 1 and thereafter in spiral development. On successful validation, the SQR may be converted into version 1, version 2, version 3, so on, for the purposes of development and limited series production on successful development in each tranche, each version. So that is how the trans-spiral development shall take place. The commercial RFP is issued out post the SQR trial, GS evaluation, staff evaluation, then the commercial RFP shall be given out. Technical aspects are already been catered for, so there's no requirement of a two RFP being issued of a single stage two RFP model. And the procurement under the procedure will be mandatory under the Buy Indian IDDM category, that 60% indigenous content has to be ensured. And just having a look at it, very difficult to go through the complete procedure. But just to tell you, there's a feasibility study. DA and the SHQ both do it together, gives you input for the requirement of the statement of case. The statement of case does not have the issues of scaling and quantity vetting, but the number of development come production partners are nominated, development timelines are nominated, what is going to be the spiral development erstwhile is already previously given to it. Foreclosed criteria should not develop by, these are the criteria by which we're going to stop it and not keep wasting money on it. Cost of development, what is the production cost? What is the minimum order quantity which I will give to the vendor? This is the minimum order quantity. You achieve this, I will do it. Further, I will give you more. Minimum order quantity will be given. If there are multiple development come production partner which DRDO will want to have, then what is the split in the quantity to the L1 and the L2 will be given over them. PSQR will be in the essential and desirable parameters. This shall be inputted to it and the EON will be taken accordingly. If it is a single vendor system, single vendor coming in, then it has to be justified to the EON authority. The validity is for 6 months for the conversion of the PSQR into the SQR. Now the design and development takes place as per the DRDO and DPSU's procedure. However, what is there is that there is a joint project monitoring team which is formed by the DRDO, which has got a 1 or a 2-star included into it, which carries out the close liaison during the development. In fact, mentoring is carried out. And the SHQ provides what used to be known as the project monitoring team. It provides a project site coordination team at the site at which the equipment is being developed. There's a team over there carrying out course coordination. So this is the interface between the SHQ, the JPMT and the SHQ, which provides close coordination hand holding. The project will undergo the detailed design review and the critical design review. The detailed design review comes in, and once it's satisfied, the critical design review comes in which there are apex bodies, both of the DRDO headed by the Secretary DRDO as well as for the DPSU, the BRMC, which carries out along with the Vice Chief the close review of these and the progress of the development of the project. And thereafter, the trial directive is issued by the SHQ. Based on the trial directive, the prototype already developed or being developed is tried out as PSQR validation. In prototype development has taken place in the final version, no further improvement are required, then you need not go in for SQR trials itself. A single stage trial is conducted. You don't need to start doing trials all over again by a different body. So the same trials can be accepted and the PSQR converted to SQR, and you go in for commercial RFP to the development AG oblique the person who is the development cum production partner. The commercial RFP is not going to DRDO gentlemen, it's going to the person who has been there for the purpose, who's going to produce it thereafter. Rest of the procedure.
There are certain changes in the process as relevant to Make 3. Since in Make 3 the QRs are known, therefore, the PSQR stage, that is changing from the PSQR to the SQR, the PSQR stage can be dispensed with completely. The feasibility study also focuses on Indian companies that can enter into joint ventures with foreign vendors for indigenous production in India. And after issue of the acceptance of necessity, there is the issue of the techno-commercial RFP with emphasis on IC verification, indigenous plan, the first of production model milestones, and the first of production model validation trials at each stage, each milestone. And limited validation trials are carried out on the prototype of the vendor, which are being compliant in the technical evaluation committee. Also, the first of production model trials, if required, may be carried out, and thereafter there would be bulk production clearance given for the actual production to be carried out in bulk. Today we have had a look at the development procedures as encapsulated in the DAP, Draft DAP 2026. In my next session, we will have a look at the additional procedures, the third one in the complete matrix that I had shown for the defense acquisition schemes that are there. Thank you till then. It's been a pleasure to be with all of you. This and earlier sessions that I have taken are available on the YouTube, my Google blog of Knowledge Enabler Defense Procurement, as also my LinkedIn account. I'm also broadcasting to anyone who wants to receive the message. So should you want to receive it, just send it to this number that is listed on this slide, want to receive, and I'll send it directly across to you. And these will only be DAP sessions. I will not be sending anything else and cluttering up your inbox. Do subscribe to my Google blog. It is free and it encourages me to further go ahead. Do disseminate these videos to people who can utilize it usefully so that maximum can benefit. Do like this post. It's certainly encouraging and it is free. Thank you so very much. Till next time.